So, a couple of interesting things to think about. So we had an election yesterday in the United States of America, and people have been asking me about what I think about that. So here's what I think. So the first thing is that remember that, like, as a human being, you're entitled to your actions, not the outcomes of your actions. And I think this is something that trips people up a lot. We get really caught up in not whether we study to the best of our ability, but whether we get the grade that we want, right? It's about results. Like, we're very, very results focused. This person is doing better than I am. I'm not doing as well as I should be. Like, look at all these things that these other people have that I don't have. The opposite team's mid laner is competent, whereas mine is an idiot. You can look at all of these things outside of what you control, and in fact, that's what we attach our happiness to. And I encourage you guys, irrespective of, which, assuming you voted or whoever you support, irrespective of who wins, to not forget that at the end of the day, if you're happy or unhappy with the election results, you should still continue to move in the direction that you think you need to go and you think this country needs to go, right? So be the change that you want to see in the world, and continue to, if you're very unhappy and depressed with the election result, that makes it all the more important for you to do whatever, you feel aligned with. So a lot of people are concerned that if Trump wins, the climate is going to be destroyed over the next 4 years, and we're not going to get into whether that's valid or invalid or whatever. My point is that if you don't like something that Trump does in terms of his policies, you should still act in accordance with, an ethical and, legal manner. So if you believe in a federal mask mandate and there isn't one, then you should still wear your mask, right? So I think that it's important that, irrespective, and a lot of people, I hear a lot of talk about if Trump wins that, they're going to leave the country and stuff like that. I think that's really dangerous thinking, because I think what that does is leaves a vacuum for the people who, who disagree with you. And so I think it's really important, if you disagree with the predominant sentiment, to actually stay where you are and try to engage people in discussion. Which brings me to my general next point, which is that I think irrespective of whether Biden wins or not, I think that there's been a big trend in this country that bothers me, which is that all the right-wing people think that the left-wing people are libtards, and all the left-wing people think that the Trump supporters are all MAGA hat-wearing idiots, right? And so there's a lot of disrespect and no attempt to understand what someone else's perspective is. And it's so easy to just call the opposition dumb, and that's the reason, right? You dehumanize them as a person. Hold on a second. Oh God. So, I think one thing that's a real problem is that, here at HealthyGamer, we believe that understanding is the most important thing, and that you should understand stuff, right? You should understand yourself, and you should understand how the world works, and you should try to understand other people's perspectives. And I think one of the big things that I remember thinking back in 2016, so I was training at the time and, was at Harvard, which is a highly liberal institution, and how really, really disappointed and depressed all of my colleagues were. And I remember having conversations with them up until the election where I was I don't think you guys get it. I think Trump really could win this. And then the bizarre thing that happened is when I would say that, people would start attacking me personally, thinking that I was a Trump supporter. And I'm I don't think you guys understand what, how disappointed a lot of America is. And I remember, being from Texas, you hear this sentiment that you're just not going to hear in urban Massachusetts, but you'll sure as hell hear it in rural Massachusetts if you listen. And so I think that there's the people who support Trump were just really, really dissatisfied with the direction that things were going. And I think the big problem that we, made is that as Americans, we stopped caring what the other side actually thinks. It's just about winning, and it's about you guys are wrong and we're right. And there's no respect given to opposing views, right? There's actually very little civil discourse. There's very little attempts to understand. And I think that's a big mistake. And I remember watching a clip from Jordan Peterson, and hopefully that's not triggering to people, but like I thought he made a really valid point. He was on a show talking with, I think, Bill Maher or something many years ago. And then they were all kind of bashing Trump supporters, and like Peterson was like, what are y'all going to do about them, right? Because they're still there and you guys just make fun of them. Like they're there and they're going to vote. And what's your attempt to like understand, engage, or convince them otherwise? Because that's not happening. And it's on both sides, right? Like if you're right wing and you call someone a libtard, like what are you just gonna insult them and then what? They're gonna vote in Biden and then you're gonna like cry? And if you're left wing and there's like a MAGA hat wearing, Trump gun toting, like whatever. Like what, you're just going to call them dumb and then like they're going to win the 2016 election and then, so if you really want, I mean, I think just in general, like as Americans, like, so here's the thing, I love being an American. I think it's a fantastic country. I feel like privileged to be here. And I don't know how many of y'all, I know that, there's a lot of stuff that America doesn't do great, but I think that's okay. Like no person is perfect and no country is perfect. And, having been privileged enough to visit, 40 or 50 countries and having gone to India multiple times and like seeing what happens there, I think India is a fantastic country too. I think there are a lot of fantastic countries out there. But I think that like, trying to understand the opposition is really, really important. And at some point they stopped being the opposition. They stopped being like people with differing views and they started being like, us against the idiots, right? And both sides are saying that. And that's like, I don't think that's going to get you anywhere. It's just going to lead to more like strife and division. So that's what I think. And just for people to, summarize, just to summarize real quick, irrespective of who wins the election, I think it's really important for you to continue to act in a manner that's in accordance with your principles. Right? So like, even if the world is becoming a dark place in your eyes, like that's all the more reason for you to shine brighter. And so instead of giving up, I would encourage everyone to like double down and try to make something of yourself and try to be the change that you want to see in the world. And so someone's joking, Pilot Dog says, my principles are to fuck Republicans. But like, see, that's the problem, right? Is like, that's actually true for a lot of people. And it's not even about what you believe in. It's about like tearing down the other guy. And like, that's a dumb way to build a country. I'm not saying it isn't a successful way to build a country, right? Because historically we've seen that, hyper-nationalism and hate towards a particular group is a wonderful way to form a country from a successful standpoint. But I don't think it's a good way to live a country, and it's not build a country, and it's not the kind of country that I would build if I had the choice, right? You start with yourself, and you start by being like as good of a human being as you can, and then if you are good enough, you'll inspire other people, and they'll listen to what you say. But like the way to do that is not through argument and telling other people that they're dumb. It's like when you walk down the street, people should, or I mean that's going to be bizarre, but when you speak, if you garner like the respect of people around you, then when you open your mouth, your opinion will matter. And that's what I think you guys should do. So don't worry about, I know it can be a blow to people when election results really come in and we find out who's winning. And at the end of the day, like, don't worry about it. Like, I mean, how is our life? I know it sounds maybe famous last words, but how's our life going to change, right? So at the end of the day, you're still a human being. You still have 2 arms and 2 legs, hopefully. You still have 2 eyes and 1 mouth and 2 ears, and you wake up every day, and like your life is going to be what it is. And sure, the president of the United States can influence it and potentially influence it drastically, a la pandemic. But at the end of the day, like even given, so how can I say this? Like you're the character in the game, and like it doesn't matter what level you're on, right? Like you're still the character in the game, whether it's like mountains or hellfire or underwater world or like outer space or whatever. You're still the character in the game, and you got to play that game. It doesn't matter where you are. You have to play the game, and your skill set's still roughly the same, and your stats are roughly the same. So you play the game irrespective of what level you're on. And like, don't bitch that, oh my God, this is the outer space level. I hate the outer space level. It's like, that's the level you got to play. You have to live in the world that we live in. And it doesn't matter what, you can disagree with it, but you've still got to live in it. So do what you can to like win the game of life. And there are going to be some things that are some RNG that's in your favor, depending on who wins the election, that's either in your favor or not in your favor. And some RNG that's against your favor, which is like, that's fine. That's RNG, right? It's part of games. It's part of life. You got to play irrespective of the RNG. You got to account for it and still move forward in the direction you want to go. Alt F4. Yeah, some people take that path, right? So what happens when you Alt F4? You close the game, and then like the next time you boot up, that's where you are, right? That doesn't change. Alt F4ing doesn't actually change anything.